السنة تنمي العقول، تصلح العقول. قال السلف: من أمر السنة على قلبه ولسانه نطق بالحكمة.
Alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters, welcome to our weekly lesson on the explanation of Usūl As-Sunnah by Imam Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, Imam Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Ḥanbal Ash-Shaybani rahimahullah ta'ala rahmatan wasi'ah, who died in the year 241 after the Hijrah of Mustafa sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Now, to continue, the great Imam Al-Fudayl ibn Iyad rahimahullah, he said, Inna lillahi ibadan yuhyi bihimul bilad. He said, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has certain servants and slaves through whom He gives life to the bilad, to the lands. وَهُمْ أَصْحَابُ السُّنَّةِ, and they are the people of As-Sunnah. Last week, dear brothers and sisters, we spoke about briefly about this great Imam, Al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala. Today, bi'idhnillahi jalla wa ala, we will look at the text, and inshallah we will begin the text. First of all, this text, the name of this text is Usūl As-Sunnah, Foundations of the Sunnah. And it is a text written on the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, on the creed of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And this is the manhaj of the Anbiya and the Rusul. That when they first started their call, they would focus on rectifying the creed, the aqidah and the tawheed of their people. It is the first thing they would call their people to. Why? Because it is the asas, it is the foundation upon which the rest of the religion built. So if one's aqidah is correct, then his a'mal shall also be correct. And if his aqidah is corrupt and it is not sound, then likewise his actions will be corrupt. And this is why when you look at the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and you look at the manhaj of da'wah ila Allah, you shall see that the manhaj of the da'wah of the Anbiya and Rusul is to call the people first and foremost to the correct aqidah and to at-tawheed. And this is why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Mecca, for the first 13 years of his da'wah, he focused on correcting and rectifying people's aqidah and at-tawheed. And none of the other obligations were revealed during this time. Yes, the salah was revealed, was legislated before hijrah, but all the other legislations and all the other ahkam, then they were revealed, they were legislated in Medina. And especially in our time today, dear brothers and sisters, it is even more so important to learn about aqidah, the correct creed, and to learn about those matters which oppose the correct creed. We are, in our time today, we are more in need of learning the correct aqidah and that which opposes it. Because in our time today, there are more shubuhat. And the shubuhat are widespread. And they are easily accessible. So it's even a bigger and a greater obligation upon us, dear brothers and sisters, to focus on the correct aqidah. And this is why the brothers, may Allah reward them, they have chosen this tremendous book. They have chosen this tremendous book, Usūl As-Sunnah. Now, this book, Usūl As-Sunnah, was compiled by Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah. And then he gave that book to one of his foremost students, and one of his students that he used to greatly respect and honor, and a student who he used to love dearly, and a student whose companionship and company Imam Ahmad used to value and really enjoy. And he occupied a great status with Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And this student, his name is Abdus ibn Malik al-Attar al-Basri rahimahullah. So this student, he took this book Usūl As-Sunnah from Imam Ahmad. And then another great scholar by the name of Muhammad ibn Sulaiman al-Minqari al-Basri, he took it from Abdus ibn Malik al-Attar. And then from Muhammad ibn Sulaiman al-Minqari al-Jawhari al-Basri, from him it spread. And other great Imams took this aqidah from him. And from them was the great Imam Abu Bakr al-Khallal, who mentioned it in his book As-Sunnah. And also from them is Al-Imam Al-Lalaka'i, who mentioned it in his book Sharh Usūli I'tiqādi Ahli Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And also it was mentioned by Al-Qadi ibn Abi Ya'la in Tabaqat al-Hanabila. Likewise, it was mentioned by Al-Imam Ibn al-Jawzi in his book that he wrote, Manaqibu al-Imam Ahmad. And others also narrated this from Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. And likewise, this text, Usūl As-Sunnah, yani it has been mentioned, any parts of it, or perhaps all of it, are mentioned by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Al-Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, Al-Imam al-Dhahabi, Ibn Muflih, and other than them from the people of knowledge. So the point being, dear brothers and sisters, that this book, this text, Usūl As-Sunnah, yani it is very well known text which has been authentically narrated from Al-Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, and yani many of the scholars, the great Imams of the past, have mentioned this text in their works, either parts of it or in full. To the extent that Al-Qadi ibn Abi Ya'la rahimahullah in Tabaqat al-Hanabila, he mentioned that Imam Abu Bakr al-Khallal rahimahullah, he said about this text, he said, if a person was to go travel all the way to China in search of this text, then that would be considered something small. That would be considered something small. So this risala, dear brothers and sisters, is a risala qayyima jiddan. It's an exceptional risala in clarifying the aqidah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in regards to the correct creed. As Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he himself mentions in this text, he says a person who does not hold on to this aqidah, then he is not from Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And when we study this aqidah, dear sisters, and read it together, and we study it together, then you will realize the great status and the great position and the great importance of this text. And you will also realize and acknowledge the great status of its compiler and author, rahimahullah. So this text, dear brothers and sisters, is called Usūl As-Sunnah. Usul in the Arabic language is jam. Usul is jam of asl, and asl is asfalu shay. It's the lowest part of something. Asasu shay, the lowest part of something, or the foundation of something, the base of something. That is asl in the lughat al-Arabiyyah. Linguistic meaning of asl is foundation and the base of something, the asas. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about the date palm tree. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, asluha thabitun wa far'uha fis sama. That is asl, its roots are firm in the ground and its branches are reaching out towards the sky. Just like the foundations of a house. A house is built upon certain foundations. So this is the meaning of asl. Yani ash-shay, yani huwa ma yubna alayhi ghayruhu. It is something upon which something else is built. Just like a tree we mentioned, we have the roots, which is the asl. And upon the roots, what do you get? The trunk and then the leaves. And the roots, the uruq, they are the asl, they are the foundation. As for the meaning of asl, the technical meaning of asl, then it has a number of meanings. But the meaning that is applicable in our context of asl is al-qa'ida al-mustamirrah, a principle or a foundation which is ongoing and continuous and firm and solid. This is the meaning that is applicable for us in our context, that it is al-qa'ida al-mustamirrah, So when we say Usūl As-Sunnah, we mean Al-Qawa'id Al-Mustamirrah fi madhhabi Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Al-Qawa'id Al-Mustamirrah fi madhhabi Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. This is the meaning of Usūl As-Sunnah. These Qawa'id, these Usul, if anybody was to oppose them, then he will be from the people of Bid'ah. And he will not be from the people of Sunnah. Because these Qawa'id, these Usul that Imam Ahmad has mentioned in this text, they are mujma' alayha. Upon them is consensus of the Imams of the Salaf. And if anyone opposes these Usul, then he leaves the realm. He leaves the way of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. And he enters into the way and the methodology and the way and the Aqidah of Ahlul Bid'ah. So this is the meaning of Usul, Lughatan wa Istilahan. As for As-Sunnah, then Lughatan in the Arabic language, Sunnah just means a way. Tariqa, a way. It can be a good way, it can be an evil way. Whatever it is in the Lugha is called Sunnah. Yani Tariqa Hasana or Tariqa Sayyi'ah. Sunnah Hasana or Sunnah Sayyi'ah. Okay, now we are speaking Lughatan, linguistically, in the Arabic language. Now, as for Istilahan, as for the meaning of Sunnah, technical meaning, the religious meaning of the word Sunnah, then it has different definitions depending on the context and depending on which science and which field in Islam we are talking about. So for example, the word Sunnah with ulama at-tawheed wal-i'tiqad is synonymous to Aqidah. And it is alladhi yukhalif al-bid'ah. So with the scholars or in the field of Aqidah and Tawheed, Sunnah means Aqidah. Sunnah means that which opposes bid'ah. And that's what the Prophet ﷺ said, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِسُنَّتِي وَسُنَّةِ الْخُلَفَاءِ الرَّاشِدِينَ الْمَهْدِيِّينَ أَضُّوا عَلَيْهَا بِالنَّوَاجِذِ. So the Prophet ﷺ said, upon you, hold on to my sunnah and the sunnah of the rightly guided successors. So you mention sunnah here. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَمُحْدَثَاتِ الْأُمُورِ فَإِنَّ كُلَّ مُحْدَثَةٍ بِدْعَةٍ. So on the other hand, you have bid'ah. On one hand, you have sunnah, and the other hand, you have bid'ah. And this is how we understand the word sunnah in the context of Aqidah and Tawheed. Also, with the muhaddithin in ilm al-hadith, what do they mean by sunnah? They mean the statements of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the approvals of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the sifat of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whether they are khuluqiyya or khalqiyya. Khuluqiyya yani his manners, his conduct sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and khalqiyya his physical appearance. All this is sunnah with the muhaddithun. As for the ulama al-fiqh, al-fuqaha, then they have a different meaning of sunnah. What do they mean by sunnah? They mean sunnah which opposes wajib. So for example, using the miswak, it is sunnah. Praying the sunnah, praying the prayers, the extra nafil prayers, this is sunnah. So according to them, Sunnah is something which if you do it, you shall be rewarded for it. And if you don't do it, then there is no punishment. This is with the fuqaha. And this is perhaps the definition which is more common amongst the people, yes? More common amongst people is the definition of Sunnah is in terms of fiqh. يعني ما يثاب فاعله ولا يستحق تاركه العقوبة ولا يستحق العقوبة تاركه. And then also the fourth and final definition of Sunnah is with the Usuliyin, the ulama Usūl Al-Fiqh, the ulama Usūl Al-Fiqh. For them, Sunnah is an overall evidence, an overall proof of the proofs of Islam. So they will say, they will say that proof and evidence in the Quran, the adillah to deen, they will say is Quran, it is Sunnah, it is Ijma', it is Qiyas, Qawl al-Sahabi, al-Istishab, ila akhirihi. So for them, Sunnah means a form of legislation, a type of legislation. And obviously, dear brothers and sisters, in our context here, what we mean by the Sunnah is the first definition, which is synonymous to Aqidah, and that which opposes Bid'ah. So this is the meaning of the book, Usūl As-Sunnah, the foundations of the Sunnah upon which the religion is built. And Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, he is not the only one who called his book on Aqidah Usūl As-Sunnah. Also his son, the great scholar, the great Imam, Abdullah ibn al-Imam Ahmad, he also has a book called As-Sunnah. Also al-Imam Abu Dawood, he also has a book called As-Sunnah. Imam Barbahari has a book, Sharh As-Sunnah. Abu Bakr al-Khallal has his book, As-Sunnah. Ibn Abi Asim has his book As-Sunnah, and others too. Although all of them call their books As-Sunnah, what they mean by Sunnah here is Al-Aqidah. Some of the scholars, Imams, when they wrote books on Aqidah, they called it a Shari'ah, Kitab al-Shari'ah by Imam Abu Bakr al-Jurri. Also Al-Fiqh al-Akbar by Imam Abu Hanifa. Al-Fiqh al-Akbar, and this book is an Aqidah. Other scholars call the books on Aqidah Kitab al-Tawheed, like Al-Imam Ibn Khuzaymah, Al-Imam Ibn Mandah, and other scholars call their books Al-Iman, other scholars they call their books Usūl Al-I'tiqad, ila akhirihi. In the point being, that many books have been written on Aqidah, okay, with different names and different titles. But what they meant by these titles was the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, upon which there is consensus. Okay. So inshallah, we will now begin with the book, which is this book here. Now, Sharh Usūl As-Sunnah, explanation of Usūl As-Sunnah, Sunnah. And the explanation that the brothers have selected, وَنِعْمَ الشَّرْحِ وَنِعْمَ الشَّرْحِ وَنِعْمَ الْإِخْتِيَارِ is by Fadilat al-Shaykh Al-Allāmah Rabee ibn Hādī Al-Madkhalī Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant him strength and good health. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him abundantly. So I think it's a good idea that we start with the introduction of Shaykh Rabee Hafidhahullah. And introductions to books are very important. We shouldn't skip them. We can gain many fawaid, many benefits from these introductions. And they are words of wisdom by these great scholars. So inshallah, today we will suffice by reading the introduction. And then next lesson, bi'idhnillah, we'll start going over the explanation in more detail. So, in his introduction, Shaykh Rabee Hafidhahullah, he started with the Khutbatul Hājah. I think the brothers have put up a PDF of the book on Telegram. So I do recommend everyone at least has any electronic copy, a soft copy of the book. I mean, you don't need to get printed out. Soft copy is enough. You can follow. At least you can follow. Bi'idhnillah. So, the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, he started in the Muqaddimah, in the introduction, with the Khutbatul Hājah. Khutbatul Hājah. After the Khutbatul Hājah, he says, Amma ba'd, to proceed. Then he says, Hafidhahullah, فَإِنَّ الْعَقِيدَةَ الْإِسْلَامِيَّةَ التي جاءت بها الرسالات كلها هي بمنزلة عظيمة في الإسلام. He said, as for the Islamic creed with which all the prophetic messages, all the risalat, all the messages of the prophets and the Rusul, they all came with this. Okay, so this Aqidah Islamiyah that all the prophets and messengers came with, it occupies, the Shaykh says, a great station and status and position in Islam. إِذْ هِيَ أَصْلُ الْإِسْلام, because it is the foundation of Al-Islam. وَهِيَ مِقْيَاسٌ لِصَحِيحِ الدِّينِ مِنْ فَاسِدِهِ, and it is the criterion, it is the standard by which we can see if an individual's deen is sound or it is corrupt. ومن هنا اهتم علماء الإسلام علماء أهل السنة والجماعة ببيان هذه العقيدة وشرحها ودعوة إليها والذب عنها. And he said, because of this, the ulama al-Islam, the ulama of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they attached great importance to clarifying the Aqidah, to explaining the Aqidah, to calling to the Aqidah, and to defending the Aqidah. وَأَلَّفُوا فِي ذَلِكَ مُؤَلَّفَاتٍ, and they wrote writings, and they wrote books in regards to the correct Aqidah. وَضَمَّنُوا كَثِيرًا مِنْهَا فِي ثَنَايَا الْمُؤَلَّفَاتِ. And on the other hand, some of the scholars, perhaps they didn't write separate books, but what they did, they put large, they spoke about many aspects of the Aqidah within other books of theirs. So perhaps it wasn't an independent, separate book on Aqidah, like some scholars did. Other scholars, they wrote other books, and within those books, they mentioned many aspects of the Islamic creed. وَلَقَدْ أُلِّفَتْ فِي ذَلِكَ الْكُتُبُ الصَّغِيرَةُ وَالْكَبِيرَةُ. And in the field of Aqidah, many books have been written, small and large. فَمِنَ الْمُؤَلَّفَاتِ. So now the Sheikhs will give us some examples, some names of this mu'allafat, these books. Some of these books is As-Sunnah, the book called As-Sunnah by Abdullah ibn Ahmad. As I mentioned before, by Abdullah, the son of Imam Ahmad. He has a book called As-Sunnah. وَسُنَّةٌ لِلْخَلَّالِ وَالشَّرِيَّةُ لِلْآجُورِ وَالشَّرْحِ أُصُولُ إِعْتِقَادِ أَهْلِ سُنَّةِ لِلَّالَكَائِ وَالْإِبَانَتَيْنِ لِابْنِ بَطَّةَ. Al-Ibana al-Kubra, Al-Ibana al-Sughra, written by Al-Imam Ibn Battah. وغير ذلك. السنة نعم وغير ذلك من المؤلفات التي اهتمت بالعقيدة. And other than these books which focused on Aqidah. لعلم هؤلاء الأجلاء بمنزلتها ومكانتها, because these great scholars and Imams, they understood and they recognized the great status and position of the correct Aqidah. وأن المنحرف في شيء منها أو في أصل من أصولها على خطر. And they recognized and they acknowledged and they knew that a person who deviates in regards to an aspect from the aspects of the Aqidah, or he deviates in regards to one of his foundations, then he's in great danger. قد يكون ذلك الانحراف كفرا وقد يكون بدعة وضلالة وقد يكون. And then Shaykh Hafidahullah, he said, and this deviation from the Aqidah, it can be, sometimes can be disbelief, kufr. And sometimes this deviation can be bid'ah. And sometimes this deviation can be dalala, misguidance. وَقَدْ يَكُونُ. And so on and so forth. وَمِنْ هُنَا يَجِبُ عَلَى طُلَّابِ الْعِلْمِ أَنْ يَهْتَمُّوا بِدِرَاسَةِ هَذِهِ الْعَقِيدَةِ والأصول التي قامت عليها. And based on this, the Shaykh says, it is obligatory upon the student of knowledge that they attach great importance to studying this Aqidah and to studying the usul, the foundations upon which his Aqidah is built. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ أيضا أن البخاري قد أورد في صحيح كتاب الإيمان وكتاب الاعتصام وكتاب التوحيد. And he said, perhaps you also know that Imam Bukhari, in his collection of hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, he mentioned chapters on Aqidah. He mentioned the chapter of Iman. He mentioned the chapter of I'tisam, holding firm to the Sunnah. And he mentioned the chapter, the book of Tawheed, at the end of Sahih al-Bukhari. وَهَذَا مِنْهُ اِعْتِنَاءٌ بِالْعَقِيدَةِ وَأُصُولِ الْإِسْلَامِ. And this shows that he attached great importance to Aqidah and the fundamentals and the foundations of Islam. وكذلك أبو داود أورد كتاب سنة في كتاب سنن في آخر الكتاب. And he said, likewise, Imam Abu Dawood, in his book, in his hadith book, As-Sunan, yes, Sunan Abu Dawood, at the end of this book, he mentioned a chapter, Kitab As-Sunnah. And the Shaykh said, وَالْمُرَادُ بِسُنَّةِ الْعَقِيدَةُ وَالْمَنْهَجِ. And what we mean by Sunnah is Al-Aqidah and Manhaj methodology. وَمُسْلِمْ كِتَابُ الْإِيمَانِ يَلْتَقِي مَعَ هَذِهِ الْكِتَابَاتِ فِي الْعَقِيدَةِ لِأَهْمِيَّتِهَا. And likewise, Imam Muslim in his Sahih, he mentioned the book, the chapter of Iman, which is also concerning Aqidah. So the Shaykh said, all this is because of the importance of Aqidah. ومن الرسائل المختصرة التي ألفت لبيان العقيدة, and from the Rasail al-Mukhtasar, the summarized, the small Rasail that have been written and compiled to clarify the Aqidah, هذا الكتاب الذي ألفه الإمام أحمد رحمه الله إمام أهل السنة والجماعة, is this book which Imam Ahmad has written, compiled, the Imam Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. ذلك الإمام الجبل العظيم, that Imam, that great mountain, جبل السنة والإيمان والزهد والورع, the mountain of Sunnah, the mountain of Iman, the mountain of Zuhd, and the mountain of Wara, piety. والذي كان مقياسا ومحنة يتميز به أهل الحق والسنة عن أهل البدعة والضلالة. And he, rahimahullah, was miqyas. He was the criterion and the standard, and he was the mihna, the test, by which the people of truth and the people of sunnah were distinguished from the people of bid'ah and the people of dalala, misguidance. وَلَا يَزَالُ مَنْهَجُهُ مِحْنَةً إِلَى يَوْمِنَا هَذَا. And he said that the manhaj, the way, the methodology for Imam Ahmad continues to be a test until this today, until today. والأصول التي قارأ عليها وصار عليها لا تزال محنة للناس إلى الآن. And the foundations which he was upon, they also continue to be a test for the people all the way from that time until now. فَمَنْ شَذَّ عَنْهَا. So whosoever deviates from it, yani from these usul, from these core beliefs, from these foundations, wallahi kadum tuhina bi Ahmad wa manhaji wa aqidati, then indeed he has been tested with Ahmad and with his manhaj and with his aqidah, and with Ahmad and the manhaj of Ahmad and the manhaj of and aqidah of Ahmad. Then he says, hafidahullah, kana Ahmadu mihnatan. Ahmad was a great test and a trial. الذي ينال منه يدل على ضلاله وخبثه وشره. All those that spoke ill of him and insulted him and belittled him and do so until now, that this is an indication of their misguidance and their filth and their evil. وَالَّذِي يُعَظِّمُهُ وَيُقَدِّرُهُ كَانَ يَعْلَمُ النَّاسُ أَنَّهُ مِنْ أَهْلِ السُّنَّةِ. And as for those who used to respect him and honor him, then the people knew that this man is from Ahl Sunnah, for respecting and honoring Imam Ahmad. They recognized that whoever honors and respects Imam Ahmad, then he is from Ahl Sunnah. Why? لأنه ما يؤذم ويبجل أحمد وغيره إلا من أجل هذه السنة. Because the only reason Ahmad and other than Ahmad were respected, are respected and are honored is because of the sunnah that they were upon. ولا نبل أحمد ولا تبوأ هذه المكانة وغيره كالشافعي ومالك والأوزاعي وغيرهم ما نبلوا وَنَبَهُ فِي الْأُمَّةِ وَعَظُمُوا فِيهَا إِلَّا لِتَمَسُّكِهِمْ بِالسُّنَّةِ. Basically, what the Shaykh here is saying, that Imam Ahmad and other than him, Imam Shafi'i, Al-Malik, Awza'i, and other great Imams, the only reason they were honorable in this ummah, and the only reason they occupied this great status in this ummah, and the only reason they are highly respected and esteemed in this ummah, is because they held on to the sunnah. إِلَّا لِتَمَسُّكِهِمْ بِسُنَّةِ وَاحْتِرَامِهِمْ لَهَا وَدَعْوَتِهِمْ إِلَيْهَا وَذَبِّهِمْ عَنْهَا. So they gained this respect and status in Islam because they held on to the sunnah. They respected the sunnah. They called to the sunnah and they defended the sunnah. فَعْرِفُوا قَدْرَ السُّنَّةِ. Then the Shaykh says to us, he says, so recognize the status of the sunnah. وَعْرِفُوا أَهْلَهَا وَقَدْرَهُمْ. And recognize and know the people of sunnah and recognize their great status. وَالْزَمُوا غَرْزَهُمْ. And hold on to their way. وَتَرَسَّمُوا خُطَاهُمْ. And follow their footsteps. فَإِنَّهُمْ وَاللَّهِ كَانُوا عَلَى هُدًى مُسْتَقِيمٍ. For indeed by Allah they were upon clear guidance and the straight path. عَلَى كِتَابِ اللَّهِ وَعَلَى سُنَّةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَعَلَى طَرِيقَةِ الصَّحَابَةِ الْكِرَامِ وَعَلَى رَأْسِهِمْ الْخُلَفَاءُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. Because they were upon the book of Allah and the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they were upon the way of the noble companions. At the head of who? At the head of them are the Khulafa ar-Rashidun. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِهَذَا. فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِهَذَا. So the Shaykh is saying, stick to this, what I'm saying to you. Follow it. أُدْرُسُوا هَذَا الْكُتَيِّبَ الصَّغِيرِ. Study this small book. Yani this small book. Study this small book. الَّذِي لَعَلَّنَا نَمُرُّ عَلَيْهِ بِسُرْعَةٍ. Because perhaps we are going to go through it quite quickly. لِأَنَّ هَذَا نِظَامُ دَوْرَاتِ مَا يَنْبَغِي فِيهَا التَّوَسُّعُ. Because the Shaykh said this is how dawrat, this is how conferences and seminars are. That yani, it's not befitting. So it looks like the Shaykh Hafidhahullah, when he explained this book, it was part of a conference or a seminar. So the Shaykh said, you know, we didn't go too much into depth because I explained this book, I taught it in a dawrah, in a conference, in a seminar, and this is how seminars are, that things are done yani, in a simple way, and ما ينبغي فيها توسع. Yani, it's not appropriate or befitting in a dawrah to go into a lot of detail. Then he says, وَالْمُرُورُ عَلَيْهَا يَكْفِينَا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهِ مَعْ بَعْضِ الْمُلَاحَظَاتِ حَسَبَ الْمُسْتَطَاعِ. And the Shaykh said, just reading this book together and going through it, alongside some remarks and some comments, as much as I'm able to do, because this inshallah will suffice us. Then the Shaykh Hafidhahullah makes dua and he says, وَأَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ أَنْ يُفَقِّهَنَا فِي الدِّينِ. We ask Allah to grant us fiqh in His deen, understanding of His religion. وَأَنْ يُثَبِّتَنَا عَلَى صِرَاطِهِ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. That Allah makes us firm upon His straight path. وأن يجنبنا وإياكم سبل الهوى والضلال, and that Allah keeps us safe, keeps us and you safe from the paths of desires and misguidance. وأن ينفعنا بهذا الكتاب وغيره من كتب الإسلام ولا سيما كتب العقيدة عقيدة أهل السنة والجماعة. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that He benefits us with this book and other than this book from the books of Islam, especially the books of Aqidah of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. So this was a tremendous, as you can see, dear brothers and sisters, yani this muqaddimah by the Shaykh is full of pearls, full of mashallah, wisdom and tremendous benefits that we can all benefit from. Now, so as I said, inshallah, we'll suffice with that today, and inshallah next week we'll start with the text. أصول السنة عندنا التمسك بما كان عليه أصحاب رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم والاقتداء بهم وترك البدع إلى آخره. So بإذن الله we'll start with that. نعم, next week inshallah. So so it suffices today. If there are any comments or any questions anyone has, then inshallah we have about 5 minutes to talk about that, and if not, then inshallah we can suffice with this. We shall suffice with this. Now,
Alhamdulillah, jazakumullahu khayr al-jaza fi dunya wal akhirah.
barakallahu.
No, amin wa fiikum, Ustadh. There is no question for now, so I think we will continue next week inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khayr al-jaza.
خير إن شاء الله. بارك الله فيكم والله تعالى أعلى وأعلم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.
أهل السنة تمسكوا بدينكم وتعلموه، لكم لن تتمسكوا به حتى تتعلموه. تعلموا دين الله. لا يحبه إلا الذكران من الرجال.